Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Yankee Chatter, episode number 3. My name is Greg Andriano, and this is Brad McCormick.
Yes, my name is Brad McCormick. I was waiting for an introduction. I wanted to know. It's your
Well-
barbecue. I'm just eating. Yes, Brad McCormick back for episode 3 at BradChatter1 on Twitter.
And you can find me at the Pinstripe Chronicle. That is TPC_Yankees blog on Twitter. We are also on Facebook and Instagram. I would recommend just searching the Pinstripe Chronicle. That would be the best way to get us there. So, want to just jump right into it?
Everything you're going to want to hear about the show is on there. Let's just get into it here.
Yep.
Not too much is happening. So
Please, before we even get started, please, if you really like what you hear, subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
It's right below, in the link below. It means so much to us if you could generate some buzz about us and pass the word along. We really do appreciate you watching. Thank you again.
And it doesn't cost you anything. It's not like a paid subscription. It's a free subscription. Just let you know when we have a new video that pops up, and it'll help you out and us. So really appreciate if you do that, and then spread the word to other people to do the same.
And even on top of that, leave some feedback. Give us a thumbs up. Like our videos. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. We're just starting out here, so we'll take any advice or tips we can to improve, because that's all we want to do is just get better at this. So again, subscribe.
We would love some content to go back and forth on. So leave any comments you want, even if you don't agree with what we're saying. Let us know. We'll talk about it.
Yep, we'll try and get back with comments. We just want to keep the dialogue going. It's all about conversation, and that's what we want to do here. So with that said, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right. The big thing that happened this past week was the 2019 Hall of Fame classes were announced, and you might recognize a couple of names on there, as two of them were former Yankees. Mariano Rivera is the first ever unanimously selected player to the Hall of Fame. This is a very big deal because no one thought that this could ever happen. There's always someone out there that's willing to not vote just for the sake of, well, no one else was unanimously voted before, so let's keep that streak alive. I think it's a fantastic thing. I think it should have been done earlier. Certainly Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, all those guys, Hank Aaron, they should have been all unanimous, and they weren't. So this is a big step in the right direction, and it couldn't happen to a better guy. So congratulations, Mariano.
Congratulations, Mariano. He definitely deserves it. And you're right. This should have been happening all along. There's so many players that deserve to be unanimous. So many writers, either they have their own agenda, or what happens is you can only – I don't agree with the way they do it, but there's only a certain amount of people you can vote for every year. So sometimes when writers know a guy's gonna get in, they use their votes on other players that they want to keep on the ballot or get in their last on the last year that they're available. So a lot of times it's not that writers don't think they're deserving of a unanimous vote, but they use their votes on other players. But this, you're right, and this is one that it had to be unanimous. There's no reason not to have him. He's just every record imaginable for closer. He's a great guy. So much for communities. And you're right. There's so many players that were in the past should have been that you named already. You know, Willie Mays and all those.
Ken Griffey Jr. should have gotten it. You know, it's a big deal, and I really hope that moving forward, especially when some of these guys like Mike Trout, or I'll even if Aaron Judge continues to produce at the way that he's producing, or Giancarlo
next year,
Stanton,
Jeter,
There's all these players. I really hope they move this forward, but we'll get back to that in a minute. Let's go through the list. The next player on the list was Edgar Martinez. He played with the Mariners. He was known as more of a designated hitter, one of the best pure hitters in the game during his career. A fantastic addition to the Hall of Fame. Roy Halladay, the late Roy Halladay, is the next inductee. He played most of his career with the Toronto Blue Jays and with a few years at the end with the Phillies. He will be going in along with the next person on the list without a logo on their cap. Mike Mussina is the last inductee. He played, as we all know, 10 years with the Orioles and 8 years with the Yankees. He will be going in with no logo on his cap. And I agree with this. I agree with it on both accounts. I think it's good for the game. It's good for both fan bases, that especially for players that accomplish such great things with both teams. I'm sure you feel the same, Brad.
Yeah, I do. You know, as soon as I heard Halladay was going in without a logo, I immediately thought the Saints should do the same. Because when you look at his career stats, it's almost a dead split right in between the Orioles and Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like he just went to the Yankees at the end of his career to try to get a
Mm-hmm.
World Series. No, it was a good split.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Now,
I actually like players going in without logos on their caps, and maybe in the future, I'd like to see players with no logos and then just having on their plaque their career stats or who they play
mm-hmm.
for. I actually like that idea. But
Mm-hmm.
do you know are there other players that have done this, or is this a
I
new thing?
believe there are. I don't know any off the top of my head. I should have
Okay,
looked
I just
this
didn't know
up.
if it was a new thing or not.
Maybe did Tim Raines go in? I don't remember. Maybe I think he was an
I don't
Expo.
know.
But the thing that kind of caused a stir with Messina is that he played 18 seasons, 10 with one team, 8 with the other. But he did play most of the prime of his career with the Orioles. He had all of his All-Star selections with the Orioles. He had more Gold Gloves with the Orioles. He may have had his 20-win season with the Yankees, but he had multiple 19-win seasons with the Orioles. So I could see why Oriole fans would be upset. But to me, it just makes more sense. He pitched in his only World Series with the Yankees, 2 World Series with the Yankees, got 20 games win season with the Yankees. He's appeasing both fan bases, and that to me speaks a lot to his character. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. He went to Stanford. It's a good move. Same with Halladay. He won most of his Cy Youngs. I think all of his Cy Youngs with the Jays. Or maybe he won one with the Phillies. I'm not sure. I have to look it up.
I think he did. Because he's one of the only pitchers to win a Cy Young in each league.
That's right. Okay, so there you go. And then he also pitched a perfect game and a no-hitter, the second no-hitter in baseball history in the playoffs
in
with
the
Phillies.
postseason, right?
Yep. So it makes sense.
It does. And with Mike Messina, I feel like there was a lot of Mike Messina about the Hall of Fame that was debatable. A lot of people thought he was borderline. He was borderline to me about being a Hall of Fame player. That was debate, and then there's also debate of who he's going to go in as, an Oriole Yankee. As a Yankee fan, I see him as a Yankee, but I could see why Baltimore fans, like you said, see him as an Oriole. And I think the casual fan outside of those two teams see him as an Oriole too. But the most impressive thing to me about Messina is that regardless of the team he played for, it was always in the AL East. It was during the steroid era. And I think those two things alone is what propelled him into the Hall of Fame, even though he had kind of borderline stats. Like 270 wins. But here's and what I told people was, he only had 270 wins. 300 is the standard to get in the Hall of Fame. Well, that's the automatic, at least. But do you really want him hanging on another 3, 4, 5 years just to get those extra 30 wins? I don't think so. I think he stepped away at the right time. He won 20 games this last year, which is incredible.
Exactly. And, could this pave the way for pitchers that had similar numbers, like an Andy Pettitte? If you look at their stats, they're very similar. Messina's a little bit better, but Pettitte has more World Series, and it's very, very close, and it could actually help his case.
Pettitte's gonna have to deal with the HGH thing, which is what's might be holding him back for right now.
Mm-hmm. So with that said, just really quickly, because I would like to touch on this, players that are tied to PEDs like Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Roger Clemens. Do you think they ever get into the Hall of Fame?
I don't know if they do get in. I personally think they should. Regardless of what they did in their careers, it's part of baseball history. And the Hall of Fame is a museum of baseball history. You could easily put something on their plaques about what era they played in, maybe any questions that were brought up about them. You want to put them in a separate wing. I don't care what you do, but those players, regardless of what they did, what we think they did, they were still the best players in this era. You can't just skip over a whole era.
Absolutely. And even before Bonds went to the Giants, and probably before he got involved in steroids, he was one of the best players for the Pirates in the league. So, he should get in. And I think maybe the voters are making strides because they took the next step with the whole unanimous voting situation with Mariano. Maybe next season you see a little bit of a boost for Clemens and Bonds and McGwire. Maybe not so much McGwire, but definitely Bonds and Clemens. Their vote percentage, I think, stayed about the same this season. So maybe that's because players were trying to get Mariano voters were trying to get Mariano as the first unanimous. So with Jeter, I think after Jeter, there aren't really any other players that I see
it's a pretty weak class
being First, yeah, exactly. So that could be their opportunity to make that giant step, and that would be a huge step. And I agree with you, Brad. They should do something to differentiate them in the Hall of Fame. Maybe give them a different color plaque or put something on there that says. I would stay away from asterisks. That didn't really go over well the first time.
1961.
But definitely put something on there, like maybe at the bottom put steroid era or something like that. But yeah, absolutely.
Get them in the Hall of Fame, and if you want to differentiate it from there, go right ahead.
It happened. It needs to be in there. 100 years from now, fans aren't really going to be familiar with what happened. We lived through it, so it's still alive and well with us. But kids 100 years from now, they're not going to be like, well, what's the steroid era? They're not going to know about it. It should be documented. With that said, talking about Jeter and Mariano being the first unanimous player voted in, do you think Jeter will be unanimous as well?
I don't think Jeter is as much of a shoo-in as Rivera, because I do know people that still think Jeter was just so overrated because he played for the Yankees in that time period, but otherwise he would have just been an average shortstop. That's what I've heard. He has over 3,100 hits. So, yes, he's a Hall of Famer, but I don't think he's a shoo-in to be unanimous like Mariano is. So I'd be surprised, actually, if he was.
I agree. Actually, it really, for me, for him to be unanimous, even though he won a handful of Gold Glove awards, I feel like he was just handed them. I don't think he really earned them. He always got a lot of flack for being not the best defensive shortstop in the league. Players like Omar Vizquel were far superior. But
even A-Rod was actually a better defender.
Exactly. So I think that's going to hurt his case for being unanimous. If he had the defensive numbers like Omar Vizquel, then definitely, I think he should be, because he's got the class, he's got the prestige, he's got the honors. He never won an MVP, not that Mariano did, but I feel like a lot of writers are going to get hung up on the fact that he wasn't the best.
He should have won the MVP the year that Joe Mauer did.
Yep.
Was it more? No, it was Mauer. Mauer, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. But he didn't, and I think that a lot of writers are gonna find little things like that to not vote for him.
There will be some writers that don't.
Yep. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I think fans should look at it more as he's getting in. He's gonna be a first ballot, no matter what.
Oh yeah.
What percent doesn't matter. Players have said they don't really care. Oh well, you got 85%. I only got 75%. I just barely got in, but you're there. You got voted. That's the honor, and that's what fans need to take away from this.
Right. Once you're there, it doesn't matter what year you were on the ballot, what percentage. It doesn't even matter if the Veterans Committee voted you in. Once you're there, you're there. Your plaque's on the wall, and that's all that matters. And I think that's all that matters to the other players that are in the Hall of Fame either. They don't care how you got there. You're there. You're one of them.
Absolutely. So we completely agree about that. So it'll be exciting to see Jeter get voted in. It'll just be interesting to see if anyone gets voted in with him.
Right. The big storylines for next year is Jeter, and it's also going to be, since that class is so weak, do the steroid era players take a jump or not?
And if any other
next year's going to be a big telltale whether they get in.
And if any other players see a hike in their vote percentage, I think Pettit might increase a little bit. But like you said, he's tied to the steroids, so that could hurt him as well.
Right.
With that said, since we're talking about a pitcher, let's talk about the one deal that the Yankees actually did announce this week, and that was officially announcing the signing of Adam Ottavino. We talked about it last week, so we won't really dive into the details about the kind of player he is. We know he's going to be great. We know that the bullpen is going to be fantastic. He's just solidifying that even more. But he was signed 3 years, $27 million total, which is a steal. I read somewhere that he always wanted to play for the Yankees, so that was really what his focus was. So this is fantastic. And the big story, which we kind of joked about last week, was, will he wear number 0? Yes, he will. The Yankees have announced it. I was wrong. I didn't think that they were going to let it happen, but they did. So this is cool because this is now the final single-digit number that is available. Will he be the last to wear it? Probably. I don't see any other player wanting to wear number 0. I feel like most players will find it a gag, but it's his thing. It's great. I think it's fantastic for the Yankees. I think it's a selling point to get people to buy merchandise, which is cool. But I think it's cool regardless. So, Brad, your thoughts?
Quick, I want to get your opinion. What do you think about his statement about how he would strike out Babe Ruth every time he faced him?
I don't know about every time. I think that's a bit of an embellishment, but I definitely think he could strike him out. It's very different eras, so it's kind of hard to believe or kind of hard to understand what kind of hitter the Babe would be in this era. Obviously, the best player of the time when he was involved in the game. I don't know. I mean, he overate. He didn't really work out. It'd kind of be interesting to see how he would stack up if he would take the extra initiative and bulk up and be the type of player that's in the major leagues now. Obviously, Ottavino could strike him out. He's a pitcher with great stuff. Most pitchers in the major leagues could strike out Babe Ruth every time. I doubt it.
Yeah, I know he clarified his statement. I didn't hear what he had to say, but I know he clarified. Now that he's a Yankee, he probably toned it down a little bit. But yeah, you really can't compare eras because if Babe Ruth was living now and playing, he might be just as good, but he might be better because now you have hitting coaches and trainers and workout programs.
Well, that's the thing is,
so you can't compare.
He's never faced pitchers like today. I mean, the balls are wound more tightly. The fields are smaller. It's a completely different ball game than when Babe was playing. So to take Ottavino and put him back in 1927, when the Murderers Row existed, he might not be able to get the type of break that he could get on a slider today. You don't know that. There's too many unknowns. But to take the Babe out of 1927 and put him into 2019, I say Ottavino strikes him out. Not every time, though.
All right.
Okay. So one of the big things that we've always seemed to talk about every episode so far was Machado and Harper. And to be honest, not much has happened on that front. Especially with Harper. Haven't really heard much about him. The only rumor that came out this week, and Brad, if you want to talk about it, is with the Padres getting involved.
Yeah, so we kept hearing about this mystery team being involved, and I was doubtful. I didn't think there actually was a mystery team. I think it's just something that agents like to throw out there to get teams to up their bids a little bit. But apparently, in this case, there was a mystery team in the Machado sweepstakes at least, and that's the San Diego Padres. Padres are interesting right now because they're making moves. They're not sitting around, and I like it. It makes you question about their intentions. If they ever did get a Kluber, would they actually clip him? Would they keep him now? If they get Machado, they've made other signings this year that they're clearly trying to get better sooner than later. There's still a long ways to go, but still. But yeah, the Padres are now in the mix. I don't know how serious they are. It's actually not that rough of a market to get into right now because it's just the White Sox and Phillies you're going up against. So why not? Why not test the bidding? See, dip your toe in the water, see what you can find.
And this is a fantastic move for the Padres because they if they can make a big free agent splash like this, then it'll probably attract other players. Plus, they have one of the deepest farm systems in the major leagues. A lot of players that are right on the cusp of coming to the big leagues. So you get an experienced guy like Machado that could work wonders for these young guys coming up. And if you are able to acquire a Kluber, then you got one of the best pitchers in the game, one of the best young hitters in the game. On top of that, some really deep rookie class coming through. So this could be a good move for the Padres.
When the Dodgers signed Pollock this past week, this past week, everyone immediately started talking about them trading for Realmuto. But what did the Padres do? The Padres, they have the system for it. What if they get Machado, Realmuto, Kluber? They signed Hosmer last year, and they have all those great rookies. I mean, I'd pull the trigger. Why not?
Did Eric Hosmer know something that nobody else knew when he signed with them last year? Because I thought he was crazy.
They tried a lot last year, and I think he's the only guy that actually went there.
Yeah.
I thought it was just for the weather, but maybe not.
I mean, that's one of the things that they're saying Machado is going to bite on is the fact that San Diego's got such great weather. And I don't know. I don't know whether or not he'll sign there. It's a long shot for the Padres. If they do end up signing him, good for them. If not, the White Sox are still heavily involved. I don't think he wants to play there. Same with the Phillies. I really think that the Yankees are keeping tabs on him, and it would be stupid not to. The only way the Yankees sign him is if they get him at their price, which is going to be around, not more, but around $200 million for the extent of the contract, probably 8 years. I don't know what I can't think off the top of my head what that works out to, but it's probably a good, decent size annual average value. But I don't know where he's going. No one knows where they're going. And who knows when the heck they're going to sign. It's been taking forever. I'm getting impatient. All right.
I think it's going to be, it might be right in your spring training now. It's going to be February. And I do think it's very important for Machado that he signs before Harper. Because if Harper signs with the Phillies, Machado's in a really tough spot because it's what is it going to be? Padres, White Sox, or you take a low bid from the Yankees. So it's very important for him that I think he signs before Harper. But neither one of them really seem like they're in a hurry right now.
Well, the thing with Machado is you would think he'd want to sign with a contender. I mean, that's your hopes. He got a taste of the World Series last year. That was the first time he's ever been to the World Series. You got to think that he'd want to get back there. And I made a joke in a tweet earlier this week where him and his agent are saying, oh, we're going to take the highest bid no matter what. And then the White Sox and Padres come in and say, we're going to take it. We're going to sign you. And he's like, no. So that's not what I wanted. So I think he might have to reconsider where he wants to sign, where he had sought out to sign at the beginning of the offseason. I really have a feeling the Yankees might come in and try and poach him at the end just because he's not getting the offers that he wanted. But, that remains to be seen.
Well, of course,
same with Harper.
And take the highest bid. I mean, you can't. What are you going to do? Come out and say, you know what? If you guys want to take, give us less, we'll consider it. No, you're going to tell people you're taking the highest bid, so people offer you more money. I mean,
absolutely.
That kind of stuff is just ridiculous, stupid when people say that.
Well, the whole mystery team thing is a thing too, because it's a mystery to the fans and it's a mystery to the writers. It's not a mystery to Machado. Machado knows everyone that's bidding on him, everyone that's interested in him. It's not a mystery to him. So it's who the agent wants or the team wants to leak out whether or not they're interested, and that also can cause some issues with other teams whether or not they want to sign him. If the Yankees weren't involved and all these other teams were involved, and then it got let out that the Yankees wanted to get in on it, then that might keep other teams from bidding on him. So it's going to be interesting to see what plays out. I honestly don't think he goes to the Padres. That's just my opinion.
Well, sucks for him then, because I don't know where the hell he's going to go.
Yep, he's going to have to take a big pay cut if he wants to play for a contender. That's for sure. Same with Harper. I don't know where he's going to go. Hopefully this week we find out a little bit more on what's happening there. With that said,
Harper's kind of strange because he hasn't really done much. Even during winter meetings, he made agents come to him. He didn't go to the teams like Machado did. So I don't know if it's an ego thing or it's the way that his agent wants to go about it. I don't know. He's just kind of staying quiet, like you said. It's just strange.
Yep. And I wonder if his whole plan of attack this whole offseason was to wait until Machado signs. The market's more popular for him right now, and once he goes away, then maybe that narrows it down for Harper and makes his decision a little bit easier. I mean,
Harper is he has that backup plan. He has a backup plan with the Nationals. No matter what, he has that deal for the Nationals where he can take, so it's convenient for him.
Depends on whether or not the Nationals pull that off the table. They may have given him a time limit on that.
They're not going to yank him off the table. It's Harper. He's been there this whole year. They want to keep their fans happy.
That's true. But if they find out, the market isn't quite what they were offering at the end of the season, they might take back that offer and say, hey, well, instead of $300 million, we'll give you $210 million or something like that. That's a big cut, which he probably would be kicking himself if he found out that the market was going to be this poor. Speaking of the market, let's jump right into that conversation. Well, strike that. I just want to say, with Harper being so quiet, and I think we touched on it last week, does this not remind you a little bit about the Yankees and Teixeira 10 years ago? The Yankees were not involved with Teixeira until the very last minute, and they swooped in and picked him up for a pretty decent-sized contract. I think it was a 7-year deal, $175 million. I don't remember. That was the year they signed Sabathia and AJ Burnett as well.
Right. I remember talking to you during the offseason, and you're like, the Yankees, I think they're going to sign Teixeira too. I said, no, they're not. They already got Sabathia and Burnett. There's no way they're going to have enough money or want to. And they did. They did.
I was convinced there was no reason for the Yankees to not sign Teixeira. He's a fantastic defensive first baseman, good switch hitter. How could you not want him? I think the same thing played out for Teixeira. That's playing out right now for Harper and Machado. Market wasn't quite what he expected, and because he probably wanted to play for the Yankees, and they came in with an offer that was just a little bit better than the Orioles, he took it. And that could be what happens with these two big name free agents. But the other free agents that are still available and that are out there, and let's kind of change direction here. We know about Harper and Machado, but Dallas Keuchel, one of the best pitchers, is still available. Craig Kimbrell, the top reliever, is still available. There are a number of really good players out there that still have not been signed and that you really haven't heard anything about it. Now, Kimbrell I get because he's putting his market way up here. He wants to big bucks. He wants to.
He wants Chapman money.
He wants Chapman money, and if Harper and Machado aren't getting what people thought they might get, then do you really think Kimbrel's going to get what he's going to get, what he wants? Probably not. No. So I really think Boston's going to come back and re-sign him because all the other good relievers have already been taken, and they've already lost a number of key relievers from their bullpen last year. They had a terrible bullpen to begin with that just happened to perform at the right time. It'd be silly for Boston to not try and swoop in and sign Kimbrel, but it's just going to cost them.
Yeah, the problem for Boston and why most people don't think that they want to spend this money on Kimbrel is because they had a huge issue coming up either next year or the year after. I can't remember with their team because there's so many of these young players are coming up for their next contract. Their whole outfield, you got Betts, Bradley Jr., Benintendi, and then you got Bogarts in the infield. All those players are going to be eligible, I think, within the next year or two for some big contracts. And Boston's already passed, I think, the second or third threshold of luxury tax. So they actually had their draft pick knocked down 10 picks this year, plus all the fines on top of that. So I think that's why they can't really afford to go sign Kimbrel for this money he wants. I think Kimbrel, they're both in a tough spot. It's going to see who blinks first. Kimbrel's going to have to realize that there's no teams out there that need him, so he's going to have to come down on his asking price. Or is it Boston first? It's going to say, we need some serious help in the back end of our bullpen. We're going to have to spend a little bit more money than we wanted to. I think that's going to be more of an ongoing issue, I think, and maybe even in spring training, because I don't see either side really wanting to give in. Because the GM of Boston keeps saying, we're not spending money, that kind of money on a reliever this year. So.
Yeah, he's been constantly, I think, a lot over the past week. He said, we're going to hand out minor league deals to form or to other players and try and put together a bullpen, which I think is kind of,
there are a lot of relievers out there just older and not as good.
And it might work out for them because Boston has such a potent offense. I mean, they do have one of the best offenses in the game, but I think it's silly because the Yankees are getting better. The Yankees have clearly improved this year, and 90% of the Boston hitters came off of career years last year. So the odds of them repeating that really aren't that great. Not saying that they can't, just saying that it might not be. They might not have, like Mookie Betts had a really good year a couple years ago, and the next year he had a terrible year. J.D. Martinez had a really good year last year. He might not have as good as year this year. So and they actually stayed healthy all year. That might not happen either. So I think Boston's putting themselves in a corner here where if they do happen to get a slew of injuries, might not work out to their favor. Same with their bullpen. So it'll be interesting. I don't know. But as far as other free agents, Adam Jones is still out there. Gio Gonzalez is still out there. What do you think, Brad, is causing all of this?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with what Scott Boras said this week. He said there's a cancer going around in baseball, a cancer of uncompetitiveness. It's almost like Major League Baseball is becoming what the NBA has been dealing with for years now, and that's just if teams know they're not going to have a chance of beating the best teams, then they see no reason to go for it, and instead they go the opposite direction. So you have 2/3 really of the league that aren't trying to win this year. They're doing the same thing that the Rays did, the Royals did, what the Marlins did back in the early 2000s when they won those 2 World Series and immediately dismantled the next year before they had to pay anybody. They're trying to do this Moneyball type approach, but not in the way the A's did it, where the A's signed guys that they knew, like they did analytics, so they knew it. They put the players in the best positions to help them win. This is the opposite. This is just saying we're not going to sign anybody. We're going to draft, develop these players, and that's really hurting the market for these free agents because look at the American League alone. There's outside of the top 5, maybe 6 teams, no one's trying to win at all, and it's awful. The NL is a little bit better because the NL Central is pretty good.
The West is better, and the West has always been a powerhouse.
Teams,
minus the Padres. I mean, it usually comes down to the Dodgers, D-backs, and Rockies.
Well, I mean, the Giants they're gonna have to take a major step back because they're gonna be one of these teams now that aren't gonna be trying to win. They actually don't have any outfielders right now.
No, which I'm surprised they didn't make a run for some of these free agents, but that's neither here nor there.
I mean, even you know how I feel about Melky Cabrera. All right, he's still sitting out there.
Mm-hmm.
As a Yankee fan, I want to sign him just for the depth. If we're not going to sign Harper, I'd sign Melky just in case.
Mm-hmm.
But why isn't Melky going to the Giants, or why isn't he going to the White
Well,
Sox?
I can see why he's not going back to the Giants because that's where he was when
Right.
the whole steroid thing came out. It's a very complicated process, and I don't quite agree with it because then you're getting these guys that aren't not guys, but these teams that aren't spending the money for these big name free agents, and they're using their system, which is a good thing for those young guys because then they're getting immediate experience. But then you're not getting teams like the Rays last year. They had 2 starting pitchers, and they actually were the team that started this whole bullpenning trend. And you know how I feel about bullpenning, and I'm pretty sure you're on the same page. But you actually said, I think, some point in the middle of the season last year, is that this bullpenning craze is going to be a thing, and we're starting to see it more and more. And it's probably because these teams don't want to spend the big money on starting pitching. They figure, oh well, we can get 2 good innings out of these young guys a piece most of the time, right? So why not just do that all the time? And then you just cycle through the minor leagues and cycle through players, and it's not good. It's not good for the game.
I can see why they do it. I mean, and just about every single pitcher in the major leagues, the first time through the lineup is the lowest batting average against number. So that's what they want to do. They want to have these guys go out there, face the lineup one time around, and then give it out. And I've told you about this. It's actually a really good idea. It's bad for the game, but it's a good idea. And look at the Rays.
You're going to spend your hard-earned money to go to a game. You want to go and you want to see a good pitcher. You want to go and see all the top hitters. I don't want to pay $70 to go see a game and see 6 no-name pitchers that I've never heard of go up against the Yankees. Probably shut them down because the Yankees suck against pitchers they've never faced before. You and I talk about this every single time. They'll be facing a team like the Royals, and they'll call up a guy out of the AAA, and we'll be like, oh, well, the Yankees will probably get shut out because they never faced the guy before, so they're just not going to know how to hit him. And it usually happens. It's funny that happens.
I love the guys that are in the first year of their career and they have like an ERA of 10.5, and he plays the Yankees, and it's just 7 innings of 2-3 hit balls.
You make them look like a Roy Halladay or it's just it's funny. It's funny, but it's not funny what is happening to the game. And so how do you fix that? And now we talked about maybe expanding the playoffs. I know I wrote an article back when I first started the blog about expanding the playoffs to a playoff tree system similar to March Madness. It's a extreme idea. I get it. You can read the article. I'll post a link in the description of this video if you want to take a look at it. But it talks about having 2 brackets, and maybe not everybody makes it, but the top 16 teams make it, and then they battle out, and the last team standing gets to play in a best of 7 World Series. It'd be more exciting because more teams will be involved. It generates revenue for the teams that don't typically get involved, or maybe you do have every team makes the playoffs, but you have to meet certain requirements to get a first or second round bye, and then those teams battle it out to get to the playoffs, and then maybe you do get a Cinderella story like they do in college basketball, and maybe a team like the Marlins makes a run where you didn't expect them to do it at the beginning of the season. It could create a new whole aspect to Major League Baseball. Now, maybe you have an idea that isn't quite as extreme as what I propose, but why don't you talk about what you think?
I think if any of your ideas, they all sound really exciting, but in order to have those ideas, you'd have to shorten the regular season, I think. And I don't think owners are going to do that because it's going to take away money. It's all about money.
And I believe I addressed that in the article, in the sense that you shorten the game, or you shorten the season to like 154 games. All right, that's 8 games shorter. You can also that gives you, or maybe shorten the season to end towards the beginning of September. That gives you most of September to play this playoff game. Now, everybody makes the playoffs, so you can jack up the prices for your playoff tickets. You can make more money that way. If your team goes on a run, you're hosting all these home games that could potentially generate more revenue. Yes, the season would need to shorten. And I think shortening it 8 games or 15 or 16 games isn't that big of a deal. The players will probably like it. You mix in some more off days during the season. Maybe you don't need to shorten the season. Maybe you need to throw in more double headers. I enjoy double headers. Sometimes when I'm at work, the Yankees play a day game. I put the game on the radio and I listen to it while I'm sitting at my desk. I love baseball while I'm at work, and I think it's something that baseball should do more of. Maybe you do double headers. I don't know. It's something that should be explored. You need to get more teams involved in the playoffs, like the NHL does. It's important. It's important for the game.
Well, yeah, the good thing, speaking of the NHL, they did go to a bracket-like system. They still have series, but they don't reseed after each level. It's just a bracket, and it's actually been a lot of fun recently. The NHL did go the extreme by reconfiguring all their divisions a few years ago and all the playoffs. They realized they had to do something to make the game even more exciting than it already is, and they did it. Baseball is just so old-fashioned; it's tough to get them to do that.
Look at how long it took to get a unanimous player in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I mean, these writers and everyone surrounding the game are so stuck in tradition. Like you were saying, I didn't mean to cut you off, Brad.
So what I always said was, baseball, if there was a way that they convinced the owners to shorten the season, I would have the regular season end in August, and then you have the playoffs half of August, maybe in September, because you own those months, okay? The NFL is still doing preseason. NHL and NBA are not playing. As baseball, that is your time. Like, you'd have so many viewers just because, even if it's just a casual fan, just because you're the only sport out there that's really playing. I don't know why you don't take advantage of that. And these owners that say it's because of money, okay, well, that's fine and dandy and all. We can keep the season the regular 162 games. You can get your money, but you got to start spending it, because right now you're not signing free agents and it's all going right in your pocket. That is what bothers fans like the Mets fans. Living in New York, I have a lot of friends that are Met fans. They just can't stand how the Mets continue to just pocket their money. There's no reason why the Mets shouldn't be in on Machado or Harper this year. There's no reason why they're not.
Now,
it's
the
ridiculous.
Mets, speaking of the Mets, I will say that they have made many more moves this offseason as they had in the past seasons.
Not hard to beat.
And they're taking on big contracts like Robinson Cano and I can't remember who else they signed.
Well, remember, they only took Cano because they were able to send out
Edwin,
Jay Bruce's big contract.
But that is a big contract that they're taking on in return. And you have a more active front office now. Not to say that they make good moves, but they're definitely a different team
making moves,
that is different than years past. But, switch over to teams like the Royals. They didn't do much this offseason. The Orioles, the Blue Jays, these small market teams, they're not making money. And even I have seen so much grief on social media about the Yankees, who make the most money and spend and invest the least percentage of their revenue back into the team, which is insane because they still have one of the top payrolls in the game. And this is what people are using to justify why they should spend on Harper and Machado.
Well, those are people who don't understand the luxury tax rules. Like, there's George Steinbrenner. Yes, George Steinbrenner would have signed both these players already, but George Steinbrenner, for most of his career, didn't have luxury tax rules. They didn't have different thresholds that they have to stay under. Plus, the Yankees, they don't really need to sign any more people this year. Second of all, they have a lot of players like the Red Sox that are coming up fairly soon for big contracts, like Sanchez and Judge, etc.
And they're not going to sign all of them.
The Yankees, while they might distribute or reintegrate less money from the revenue as other team or percentage-wise of other teams, they're still putting what they need to do to put a winning team out in the field that's enjoyable to watch and worth going to see a game.
And fans really need to understand that. It's just point blank.
Now, back to the original point where I tried to figure out how to fix this. If it's not your idea of shortening the season or adding different playoff things, then you got to go to maybe doing a spending limit. I don't know how you could tell teams they have to spend money, but it's got to be a way where the commissioners say, if you want to be part of this league, then you have to spend this percentage of money every year.
Maybe there's a minimum salary cap. Maybe if there's luxury tax tiers where if you spend above a certain amount, you have to pay a certain penalty fee. Maybe if you spend below a certain penalty or a certain payroll, you also get fined.
You should, because you can't have these teams like the Orioles and Blue Jays and I think either Padres and San
There-
Francisco Giants. They haven't signed one free agent this year.
There is a team out there. I think I read somewhere that has a payroll of less than $100 million. And that's absurd. That's absurd. With the amount of revenue that these teams generate, they need to be investing back into the team. So I think if your payroll is under $100 million, then you need to pay a fine. You need to pay a fine.
Yep.
Just like the team that's over $206 million this year. You know, it has to work both ways.
There should be a minimum.
You have to motivate these teams to spend the money, and there's only so many ways you can do it. And I think as soon as you mention something like that, then the ownership might go into uproar. But you and I had talked last week where there's a potential of players going on strike after the next CBA. Well, there's also the possibility that owners could cause some issues with how things are done. Yeah, and you don't want that. That's bad. That's bad for the game in general because no one's making money that way, and you're hurting the fans. And just like in the strike in '94, with how much time was missed, you're going to lose fans. And that's, again, the last thing that this sport needs, because to me, it's the best sport out there. For me, that's my opinion. I know people might disagree with me, but it really is. It's America's best pastime. There's so many just traditions that go along with it. And if you're going to stay the same, you're going to lose fans. If you're going to do things that, I mean, either way, someone's going to be offended. That's just the society we live in these days. But at the same time, you got to do something.
Yeah, there's no reason why the AL East should come down to two teams every year. There's no reason why the AL Central is the Indians to win, and they could sleepwalk through the season and still win. I know the Twins are trying, but there's no reason why the White Sox, Royals, or Tigers can't do something. There's no reason why in the West that I know you got the Angels coming around now, but now you got the Mariners taking a step back. You know, you got the A's taking a step back, probably. It's just no reason for that. You got to have at least half the teams in each league competing for a playoff spot. You gotta have you gotta have the fans believing a little bit to go there and spend their money.
Now, the one nice thing about the Major League Baseball season is that the last handful of years, the World Series has been two different teams almost every year. Now, the Dodgers have been back 2 years in a row, but you're getting different opponents. If you go to the NBA, it's always Golden State and Cleveland. It's always, and then the NFL, you always got the Patriots there. It's sickening, to be honest, because I'm regrettably a Knicks fan, so I don't watch the Knicks anymore because, one, they're a terrible team, and two, it doesn't matter because you still got super teams like the Warriors, and I haven't really been paying attention much this year, so I don't know who else, because Cleveland's certainly not going to be there since James isn't there anymore. But it makes it less fun to watch if the same two teams are there all the time. If the Patriots are there all the time, I don't want to watch the Super Bowl. I'm probably not going to watch much of it this year. I know, curse me, but it's not fun for me because I don't really care about Tom Brady. I don't really care about the Patriots. Now, it's different for you because your wife's a Patriots fan, so she's obviously going to want to watch the game. But for fans that don't really care about the Patriots, you're going to lose viewers that way. I mean, maybe that's just me, though.
Well, that's not the NFL's fault, though, because we don't want to get into too much talk about that.
No. But this is a Yankee sportscast.
There is a lot of competitive teams in the NFL. It's just the Patriots somehow finally do it.
Somehow, there are but
teams out there that could be.
This conversation definitely mostly applies to the NBA.
Right.
I just bring
I don't want the MLB going into it.
It's the last thing we want. As big of fans as we are, and we're not just Yankee fans, we're Major League Baseball fans as well, and we would hate to see anything hurt the sport in such a way. I mean, I love watching the Yankees win the World Series as much as any Yankee fan does, but it's always good to see other teams outside of the Red Sox win the World Series. If the Yankees don't make it there, it's nice to see it. When the Yankees make it there, obviously you want them winning every year if you're a Yankee fan. But like I said, it's good for the sport when you get a team like the Royals win the World Series, or the Astros. They haven't won it ever before last year. So it's good. It's good thing.
That's good, but you don't want teams tanking to get there.
Right. Exactly.
That's our point.
Exactly. You're absolutely right, Brad. So with that said, we've kind of gone through everything we really wanted to talk about. Actually, no, that's not true. There's one more thing we need to talk about, and we can talk about it really quickly because
spring training is right around the corner.
It is coming up, and with the induction to the Hall of Fame, Mariano has been interviewed saying that he wants to be a part of spring training this year. He wants to teach a lot of the Yankee relievers his cutter. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think relying heavily on the fastball hurts players sometimes. I'm not saying don't throw it. I'm just saying mix up your pitches a little bit. Look at all these pitchers that they throw hard, and Mariano threw hard He just threw a pitch that had movement on it, and it affects both sides of the plate in different ways. You get lefties up there, it jams the hitter. You get righties out there, they're reaching for the ball and they're hitting the ball at the end of the bat, breaking the bat. And that's a good thing. And you got guys like Dylan Betances and Chad Green, and maybe not Old Chapman because he's fine. He has that wipeout slider. But you get these hard-throwing righties up there that can throw this cutter. That's a good thing. And I think it should be integrated into the Yankees bullpen. And I say, Larry Rothschild, watch your back because Mariano's going for your job.
All right, a couple things. I also agree. It's great that Mariano's going to be there, and any pitcher can obviously benefit from the one single pitch that made Mariano his whole career. You're right. Teaching these guys the cutter would be unbelievable. Imagine, Chapman has that wipeout slider, but imagine him up there breaking bats like Mariano did. Because there's only, he still throws 100, 203 miles an hour, but that's going to start taking a step back sooner or later. He's not getting any younger, and he's already had those knee issues last year. But Tantis, imagine that guy with a cutter. It'd be unbelievable. And what a resource for the Yankees. We don't, I don't know what other teams do. I don't know if they have past players that come to spring training, but the Yankees do. But the Yankees,
I think they do, but not in the same capacity.
Right. So Yankees every year, they have Nick Swisher there every year. They have Andy Pettitte stopping by. You always have Reggie Jackson hanging around. Now you're going to throw Mariano Rivera there. That's exciting. That's such a huge benefit of being a part of the Yankee organization. And I think it's a great idea. And I hope Mariano does go there and spend some time with them. That'd be great.
And one last thing about the cutter is for an aging pitcher like Andy Pettitte. He didn't have a cutter when he started out, but I think Mariano kind of showed him, led him that way, and that helped with Pettitte's longevity. I think, if I'm not mistaken,
Pettitte is now teaching at the CC actually.
Yeah,
I think CC's throwing that.
I believe you're right, and I think he mixed that in the last 2 years because if you can't rely on your velocity anymore, then you need something that you throw hard that has movement on it. And when these young pitchers can't throw 100, like when Severino can't throw 100 miles an hour anymore, what's he going to do? We already know he doesn't throw a slider that accurate. I mean, you saw it in the wild card game and in the playoffs last season.
Right.
Unless he can get that under control, he needs to develop another pitch that he can throw hard that isn't 100 miles an hour but has movement on it that can keep hitters off balance. So this is a brilliant move, and I really hope it pays off. And with that said, why I brought up Larry Rothschild, and Brad and I talk about this all the time, is that people look at him as some sort of pitching coach genius. I don't see it. I always feel like pitchers have regressed ever since he's taken over for, I think Ron Guidry was the pitching coach before him, right? So I think since he took over for Guidry, I don't see it. I don't see what's so great about him. Maybe I'm missing something, but I think when they cleaned house after they let Girardi walk, they should have reconsidered bringing back Rothschild.
I agree. We talk about all the time. Rothschild does not do well with adjustments. He doesn't take the next step of players. They usually take a step back. Tanaka's taking a step back. CC, because of his age too, he's taking a step back. Severino, second half of last year was awful. You can't tell me a pitching genius like Rothschild wouldn't be able to tell that he's taking pitches. So many guys in the bullpen, but
Sonny Gray,
they say one of the best things for him in Cincinnati is that he's going back to his old pitching coach from Oakland or college, I think.
College. Yep.
And he said he was excited about that. So that's saying Rothschild. I got a name for you though. Instead of Mariano is going to be there in spring training. I don't think he wants a full-time job. I'd go with David Cohn.
I knew he was going to say
that. Throughout the whole broadcast, he knows what he's talking about. He knows the pitches are coming. He knows what the pitcher's doing wrong. And frankly, I can't stand him in the booth. So I love
David Cohn in the booth.
I like Paul O'Neill. David Cohn.
I love Paul O'Neill.
Corny and.
Well, we know that Al Leiter's not coming back this year. He's spending time with his son because he's one of the most highly touted high school pitchers. I think that's a good thing for him. Sad to see him go, but it's good for his son. I love David Cohn in the booth because I just like when he tells stories. I like when all these former players come in and tell stories.
Yes.
But no, I love David Cohn as a pitching coach moving forward just because he's got the tenacity to do it. He's not afraid to tell a pitcher to throw at someone. Not that I condone that, but he also he is one of those guys that went from a hard throwing pitcher to a finesse pitcher. Yeah. And that is good for these guys that haven't quite made that transition yet. But he's also, like I said, has the fire to do it, and he can light a fire under these young guys and motivate them to pitch the way that they're capable of doing. So I agree with you, Brad. It'd be cool to see Mariano, but I think the best fit would be David Cone.
I agree, and I know we were pretty excited. I think Rothschild's contract was up, so I think we're both pretty excited. Something might happen, but then he signed another contract this year. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay. So with that said, hopefully some exciting stuff happens this week, and we can, or between now and our next recording, so that we have a little bit more to talk about. Hopefully there's some big signings. Who knows? But with that said, on behalf of myself and Brad, thank you again for watching. Please subscribe. Please let us know what you think. We really appreciate you watching. We love to hear what you think. This is not our day job, so we do this as a hobby, but we really are very passionate about the Yankees. So if you really like what you hear, subscribe. If you don't, let us know what you think in the comments section below. But we love that you're watching to begin with. So thank you.
Yeah, so keep watching, keep subscribing, and those comments tell us, are we going too long on topics? Are we doing short? Now, what topics would you guys like us to talk about? We'd love some ideas. We come up with these topics on our own because that's maybe going on in baseball right now until the season starts. So if you have some things that you want to debate that you want us to talk about, and you can join in the discussion with comments, go ahead, write in. We're all ears.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That is a good point, Brad. And if for some reason you don't get to watch us again on the YouTube, check us out on Twitter. Like I said, my handle is TPC_Yankees blog. Just search.
And I have Brad or Shadow 1 on Twitter. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So again, check us out. We're very active on the social media. We'd love to hear what you think. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Just keep on subject. With that said, thank you for tuning in. My name is Greg Andriano.
And I'm Brian McCormick, and I hope to see you on episode 4 next week.
All right. Have a good one, and go Yanks.